I'm an emotional person. I cry at movies and get depressed when I hear about the problems our friends are facing. When this situation first arose, I was in denial. When the truth was revealed, I prepared myself for the inevitable confrontation. Even though I knew what to do, my heart wasn't in it. Only anger moved me forward. Alice, after dinner, I want to sit down and talk to you about our household expenses. Okay, honey, is there a problem? Nothing major, just a little adjustment in what we spend and how we pay for it. Are we having money problems? They are easily solved. I'm glad, dear. Dinner will be ready in 30 minutes. Okay, I'll watch the news until he's ready. Call me when it's ready. I have been preparing for this conversation with Alice for more than a month. I wanted to make sure she didn't have any questions when I was done. Sitting in front of the TV, I watched Alice happily prepare dinner for us. I thought about our 21 years of marriage. The children no longer lived with us. Both studied at the university. The younger one was a year younger than the older one. The house seemed empty when I was alone in certain parts of the house. The screams, noise, and quarrels that used to be so annoying were now absent. I knew Alice felt the same way. On the last day that our youngest left home, Alice and I hugged each other to support each other. Alice was crying. I tried to console her, but in my heart I also cried with her. While Alice expressed her emotions easily, I found it difficult. My heart seemed to explode with sadness before the tears began to flow. I found no comfort in tears and almost envied Alice that she had a way to express her emotions. When our children reached school age, Alice worked part-time so she could be home when the children returned from school. As the children got older, Alice worked more hours every day. By the time our youngest started high school, Alice was working full-time with no overtime. Alice and I insisted that our children do well in school. This meant that they had to study and get good grades. Any grade below a B reduced their free time or playtime. Both children did well in high school and returned home with homework completed every day. We wondered how they managed it, but their grades were good and their teachers had nothing but positive things to say about them. Looks like Alice is almost ready. No, she always has some last thing to do. We got married when we were both 20 years old. I was happy with our relationship at that time. We have been exclusively together for almost a year and have been living together for the last 6 months. Alice then began to hint at marriage as a way to take responsibility and care for each other. From my perspective, I found someone I was comfortable with and thought she would be a great life partner. Alice says she wanted to get married because she was afraid of losing me. Notice that I didn't talk about love. Many of our friends talked about love, but I never understood this feeling. I was infatuated with Alice. I craved her most of the time. When she wasn't around, I felt empty. I enjoyed supporting her as much as I appreciated her supporting me. We talked about everything and rarely argued. Our morals and expectations from each other coincided. But did all these feelings mean that I loved her? Accepting that all these feelings together define love, I began to tell her that I loved her. Our parents were not happy that we wanted to get married so early. Their arguments were valid and made sense. Despite all the pressure, we insisted on our desire to get married. When we could not be persuaded to postpone the wedding, the parents on both sides agreed, subject to a number of conditions. One of the conditions was the use of contraception. It is logical that pregnancy will negatively affect our future. We were not yet married when our 4 parents had a serious conversation with us about what to do and what not to do to avoid pregnancy. Discussing such intimate details with my parents was humiliating. I always thought it was a girl's problem, but I quickly realized that it was my problem too. The frightening fact was that the pregnancy would also affect our parents. To live, be married, and study, we will need their support. For the first 2 years of university, we lived in the basement of my parents' house, and for the last 2 years before graduation, we lived in the attic of Alice's parents' house. Sex was exploratory at first. I was her first. I've had some experience. But sex with the woman you care about was different. I didn't want to hurt her. I didn't want her first time to be a bad experience. She seems ready to call me. Yes, dinner is ready. I came into the kitchen to help carry the food to the dining table. We had a habit of having all the food on the table before we started eating. Alice and I agreed that it wasn't fun to have to get up every time to get the next dish or clear the dishes from the table. This was the case when the children still lived with us. Alice wanted to spend as much time at the table as I did, and I always helped her clean up after eating. Cooking was her specialty. Although I knew how to cook, I wasn't as talented as she was. Alice believed that the environment and furnishings of a home made it warm or cold. The same applied to the food or presentation of our dishes. Everything had to be perfect. Since I wasn't picky about these things, she made all the decisions. After Alice and I carried the food to the table, we sat down and looked at each other. One of our habits was to take a minute to look at what we had. If not say a prayer, then at least take the moment and appreciate all that we have. A little wine, or in my case, half a glass of beer, and we were ready to compliment the food and then try what looked appetizing. Almost everything looked delicious. Alice was an excellent cook and often told me that she loved seeing me eat what she cooked. It was also an excuse for her not to eat too much. Like most women, she was constantly on a diet. Halfway through dinner, I looked at her and said, "You're beautiful. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Thank you, dear. Why is this happening all of a sudden?" "Sometimes I feel like I'm losing you. I know we have our own private activities, but sometimes I feel like yours are pulling you away from me." "I would never leave you," she said. "We're married for life. I can't imagine life without you." "Do you really mean that?" I asked. She looked a little nervous but replied, "Why would you think otherwise?" "Like I said, I feel like there's a growing distance between us, and that makes me sad." "Maybe you're reacting to empty nest syndrome, honey." "Yes, maybe. Don't you feel the same?" "No, honey. I have everything I need, and I'm happy with it." "Okay, then maybe it's all in my head." We continued to eat and talk about news and updates on friends and family. When we finished dinner, I turned on the stereo to the good old radio station. "This reminds me of the past," I said. "You're feeling nostalgic today," she said. "Is there any special reason?" "Yes, in a way. That's what I want to talk to you about later." "Okay, honey, can you give me a hint about what you want to talk about? Instead of you speculating or coming to the wrong conclusions, I'd rather we sit down and talk in an organized way, okay?" "Okay," she said, looking at me questioningly. We continued cleaning while listening to background music. When everything was tidied up and in its place, Alice asked, "Shall we talk over a glass of wine or coffee?" "I think coffee would be better." "Give me 15 minutes to make the coffee. Where do you want to sit?" "Let's sit on the kitchen table." I went to get my documents while Alice was making coffee. When I returned to the kitchen, Alice was sitting at the table with 2 cups of coffee. I had a hard time developing my pre-divorce financial plan for Alice and myself. The legal advice was to try to work things out so we could stay together. Otherwise, the divorce will be very expensive for me. Informal advice from several sources was, stay married, but control the money. As long as we are married and the courts do not interfere, I can unilaterally decide where the money I earn goes. Being forced to separate finances was a good precursor to divorce. I could always claim that we were already financially separated. Sitting at the table, I pulled out the first sheet of paper. "That's our living expenses," I said. "Please look at them and tell me if I missed anything." "Okay," she said, and carefully studied the list I had prepared. "Everything seems right," she said. "Now what?" This second sheet shows all the expenses from the first list by user. In other words, it shows who uses what. The first column is our total expenses. The second column is my personal expenses, and the third column is your personal expenses. Please look at it and tell me if you don't agree with something. She studied it for a while, then agreed that the list was mostly correct. This third sheet is our income. Obviously, I make more than you, and it's fair that I pay more into our joint bills. I just want to be clear. Okay, I know you're onto something. Yes, What I'm saying is that I want you to bear half the burden of our shared expenses and pay for all your personal expenses." She looked stunned. "I don't understand. We're married. Why should we start separating the money we earn and our expenses? Besides, I don't earn as much as you do. I barely have enough to cover my personal expenses. Why do you want me to do this?" I saw that Alice was getting emotional. She couldn't put two and two together. "I think it would be better for both of us to understand what we bring into our marriage and what we take out of it." "I don't understand. What good will this do?" "I think you're using me. Maybe that's one of the reasons why I feel like we're growing apart." "Is this related to sex?" "Yes, kind of. We're a married couple, but we stopped having sex about 4 months ago." "This is wrong." "Oh? When was the last time we had sex?" "Last month." "Yes, at the beginning of last month, and now it's the end of this month. That's 2 months. Sorry, I didn't realize that. I'll make up for it tonight." "I don't want pity sex. I don't want to have sex with a woman who doesn't want to have sex with me. You can't say you forgot because I asked many times and you kept saying no. When did you stop wanting to have sex with me?" Looking confused, she said, "I never stopped wanting to have sex with you." "I don't think that's true. Why did you stop wanting to have sex with me? Are you having sex with someone else?" "Of course not," she said with a worried look. "You're imagining. You're my husband. There's no one else I love. You're the only one." "Are you the only one you love? Is it true?" "Of course it is." "And you never told another man that you loved him?" "No, never," she answered too quickly and with too much emotion. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," she replied, but with obvious cracks in her face and body language. "Well, I have it on good authority that you were seen with another man getting out of your car in the motel parking lot. There must be a mistake. You were also seen at a bar downtown, the kind of bar that no one we know would go to." "This is completely wrong. I was never there." "It's interesting that you were spotted once at a bachelorette party and another time late in the evening when my business partner recognized you from your photo on my desk. Maybe it's someone who looks like me. I would never do something like that. After the first time I heard about you, I knew it was a mistake. After the third and fourth times, I had to be sure. I hired a private detective agency to follow you. It cost over $3,000 to get the necessary evidence. Do you want to see photos or videos?" Alice went from active denial to sweating on the spot, then to trembling. When I mentioned the photographs, her face turned white, like a fish on shore, as she began to gasp for air. Tears followed, then shortness of breath as she tried to breathe. "Would you like me to call Peter to come get you? Maybe he can take you to the hospital and then take care of you at his home." "No, don't call him. He's depressed enough as it is. I'll be fine." "You're wasting my hard-earned money on this Peter. You've been giving yourself to him almost exclusively since you stopped having sex with me. How do you think I feel? How does it feel to hurt the husband you claim to love?" "When I first heard about your cheating, I was in denial. As the little details of what you did dawned on me, my mind went crazy. Like my wife, my best friend, my lover, the mother of our children, could she be a cheater? How can she not respect me, our children, and both of our parents? At first, I thought he was paying for your time in bed. When I found out that you were paying him with my money, I was doubly outraged. Care about him more than about me. I thought I was your future. Now are you looking at a future with him or with someone else? Is that what makes you happy?" Alice's eyes began to dim as I spoke. The more questions I asked, the more they penetrated her mind. Tears formed in her eyes and began to roll down her cheeks as she began to tremble. "I thought you would understand that I didn't do this for personal pleasure. I did it to ease his pain." "So when he had sex with you, you didn't like it. It didn't bring you pleasure. If you thought I would understand the situation, why did you do everything to hide it?" "I don't know," she sobbed. "I just wasn't thinking. I was focused on easing Peter's pain." "What about the pain you caused me?" "Are you going to divorce me?" she asked. I remained silent long enough for her to turn even whiter and slide off her chair onto the floor. I watched as she lay on the floor, wondering if I should care. After a few seconds, her eyes began to blink, her mouth opened, and her tongue licked her lips. She looked up at me. "You don't care about me anymore." "Not as much as before," I said. "You lied to me. You cheated on me. You didn't respect me, and obviously you're an easy girl. How can I trust a lying, cheating bitch? Why would I be married to a lying, cheating bitch?" "You have to let me explain," she said. "We have the whole weekend," I said. "That's why I waited until Friday evening. I thought you would want to leave me for your lover." Before I started, I had already read all the standard excuses. That is, it was just a passing fancy, only sex, there was never any love, etc. "Do you still want to explain?" "Yes." "Are you sure you don't want to leave me now and go to your lover?" "I'm sure. I only want you. I love only you." "But you told Peter you loved him. Who do you really love? Are you lying to me or him?" "It's so difficult." "Like I said, we have the whole weekend. Start when you're ready." I met Peter about 6 months ago. I met him at a bachelorette party. I walked up to the bar to get drinks and saw a man sitting there crying. "This man was Peter?" "Yes." "Continue." "Anyway, when a few other girls went to the bar, they came back with the same story of a man sitting and crying at the bar. When the fourth girl in our group went to get drinks, she came back with this man crying. We were all sympathetic and wanted to hear his story. Sitting at our table, he began to tell his sad story. It was heartbreaking by the end of his story. Just give me the gist of his story. Long story short, his wife died. This was after his 3 children died one after the other, each from different causes. His finances fell into disarray shortly after he was fired because he was depressed because he wasn't doing his job, where he worked for more than 15 years. Sounds like a scam, maybe a panty hunter. We thought so too. His story was too sad to be true. When he showed us photos of himself and his family, we also saw his address and ID. Over the next 2 weeks, each of us checked his story. It turned out to be true, and we wanted to help him somehow. I was chosen as a messenger. I called him and asked if I could come to his house. I went to the address he gave. It was a clean apartment building, but not in the best area. He answered the door in a robe and let me in. It seemed like he was still crying since the last time I saw him. I asked if he had tea and offered to make it for us. I prepared 2 cups and sat on the chair opposite the sofa where he was sitting, sobbing. I sympathized with this poor man, so I sat down next to him on the sofa and hugged him. I held him while he held me. Gradually his crying stopped and turned into grateful kisses. At some point I began to return his kisses. His tears wet my blouse. When I pulled away, he looked at me and said something like "I'm beautiful." I wanted to show him that he's not alone, so I kissed him again. I missed and kissed him on the lips instead of the cheek. One thing led to another, and before I knew what I was doing, I wanted to show him that he was not alone. Little by little, he took off my clothes while I undressed him. With only one thought in my head to show him that he was not alone, we got to the bedroom. It smelled, but I was on a mission to show him that he was not alone. Once in bed, I let him have me. I wasn't going to let him go that far. It should have been just a hug. Before I knew it, he was making love to me. For hours, I was his. When I finally left his apartment, I couldn't believe what I had done. I had no explanation for what happened. He's about 10 years older than us, but he had this energy that completely dominated me. That was the first time. I was glad to leave him. I needed my mind back. I felt incredibly guilty. Since then, I have tried to avoid sex with you. I was afraid of comparisons between you. I was afraid that no matter what he did to me will make me his if I compare you too. We had sex several times since I was with him for the first time. I felt so guilty and tense every time that I couldn't give myself completely to you, so avoided you. Even now, I can't say exactly what my attitude towards him means. I want to be with him, but not because I love him or even strongly sympathize with him, but because I can ease his pain. There is something in this for me that's value. What about my pain? I asked. You are so strong that I come to you when I have pain or a problem. I don't feel strong enough to take away your pain. I don't feel like you need me to take away your pain. I feel like he needs me. Well, let me make my feelings clear. I'm hurt. Real pain that I've never felt before. You gave me this pain. I feel like I've lost my best friend, my trusted lover, my wife, and the marriage that was meant to last until our old age. My heart is bleeding and my mind is always somewhere else. Maybe I'll end up like Peter and lose my job because my mind is lost because of the pain you caused me. And now, I'm not sure that you can free me from the pain you gave me. I no longer trust you, your promises or vows. Staying with you only means more pain for me, since now I know that you will lie to me and no longer belong only to me. To me. I'm so sorry, my husband. You're the only one I really love. I don't know what to do. Well, we have to start somewhere, and it starts with finances. Since I pay most of our expenses and some of his, this will stop. You will pay half of our total expenses and all of your personal expenses according to the lists we have compiled. In this communications, I have taken steps to cancel everything that is in our names and everything that you personally use that I pay for, such as your car. I paid a private investigator over $3,000 to find out the truth. You were honest with Peter about me, but you lied to me about him. From this, I conclude that your loyalty is greater to him than to me. No, please, it's not like that. I love you. I don't love him. But you want to go to him, don't you? Yes, but only for sex, and only to relieve him of pain. All this time without caring about the pain you caused me, your loving husband, I said. So what are you going to do? She asked, trembling and sobbing. The easiest thing for me would be a clean breakup. A clean breakup means divorce, and I will never have anything to do with you again. Alice burst into tears and began to choke as tears filled her eyes and rolled down her cheeks. Unfortunately for me, I still have feelings for you even though you continue to hurt me. So I'm not going to kick you out. Since you already have a bed somewhere else, you can sleep in one of the children's rooms. Let's not sleep together anymore. Since I don't own you, I can't control you, but I can respond to your painful actions. I won't pay for your love life or other activities that go against our original marriage vows. I have canceled all of our shared financial obligations, such as credit cards. I will sell your car since it is in my name and I am paying for it. I will also cancel the insurance on it. You will have to buy another car or buy this one back from me at market price. Price and sign up for your insurance. You will need to sign up for credit cards in your name. I canceled your cell phone, which is in my name and which I pay for. Until I decide what to do with your health insurance, it will remain on my plan. Since we are still legally married, we will sign and register a separation agreement so that I will not be burdened with your debts. As of this weekend, I will consider our legal marriage and all financial obligations null and void. You can come and go as you please, but you will pay for it. Under no circumstances will I pay for anything you do with Peter or any other man. If you need money to support your half of the household expenses, find a second job or ask Peter for financial help. You have always been a good lover. Peter should be willing to pay the current market price for your services. Subsidize. Tomorrow we will sit down and discuss our conditions in detail. I looked at Alice, my best friend, the mother of my children, and the love of my life, as she fell to the floor. I didn't kick her out, but I made her pay for herself. It seems that when you subsidize someone for any reason, it is too easy for them to take advantage of the situation. Didn't I love her and provide her with a comfortable life? Was I just a simpleton or a cuckold? Yes, only because I loved her and didn't know what she was doing. I've heard stories of people turning into a mass of flesh on the floor. I never thought I would see this until I saw my once faithful wife Alice dissolve into tears. Please go upstairs and move your things out of what was our bedroom. Then, if you want to keep crying, do it in your new room. Or you can go to Peter. I don't care. Alice continued to cry on the floor. When she realized that I was not going to console her, she stood up and trudged to our bedroom. I heard her cry for a long time. In all our years together, I always tried to comfort her and take away as much pain as possible. Now I felt guilty that I didn't do anything to comfort her. I turned on the TV and turned up the volume so I couldn't hear her crying. After a while, I noticed that the movements in the corridor between our bedroom and one of the children's rooms had stopped. Looking into the corridor, I saw Alice dragging her things between rooms. Since she wasn't crying loudly, I turned down the TV volume. When things got too quiet, I walked over to the closed door of the bedroom where she would sleep and listened. She was talking to someone on the phone. I wasn't sure, but I thought she was talking to Peter. Later that evening, she came into the living room and sat on a chair while I was watching TV. "I'm so sorry I hurt you." "Is it true?" "Yes." "So are you going to stop hurting me?" "I can't just leave Peter." "It seems like you'll have to choose who's more important to you." "You're both important." "So after all our years together, my value to you is equal to that other man you recently started sleeping with?" Alice lowered her eyes and said, "I suppose so." "How are you going to explain this to our children and parents?" "I don't know." "You're ruining our marriage. We'll never grow old together. We'll never be a family again. Moreover, we won't share our grandchildren. You're killing our future, and you're okay with that? Could you forgive me? I don't share my wife with anyone, man or woman. If I'm not enough for you and you need someone else outside of our marriage, we have no future. Keep in mind that I'm not going to sugarcoat our situation in front of the kids or your parents. You will have to stand your ground and explain it yourself. So how will we live while I stay in the house? You will sign a separation agreement and begin paying your fair share. If we eat together, we will split the cost of food. If you sleep here, I will not burden you with any responsibilities to me. The only thing I ask is that you let me know if you weren't spending the night in the house so I wouldn't worry. Are you going to worry about me? Of course, just like any other person I live with. I worry about your Peter. Any man with moral principles would not have sex with a married woman. That speaks volumes about his character. Knowing this, I worry about you while I'm with him. Are you sure he's the only one you're sleeping with? What about sexually transmitted diseases? Are you sure you're both healthy? I'm worried, but I can't control you. At least when he will end up with you, what will happen to you? I won't be there to help you. So now, nothing really changes. You can come and go as before. We don't sleep together anymore, so I'll take care of myself. You take care of yourself. Once financial obligations arise, you'll have to find the money for your share. You will have to buy another car if you don't want to buy this one back at the market price. One thing you should start doing immediately is taking care of your health and finances. I will no longer support you or what you do. You are alone if Peter will not help. I don't know much about Peter. Does he work? Can he support you? Does he want to support you? Do you want to marry him when we divorce? Divorce is the natural end of our relationship. He is interested in marrying you. You said that his wife and one or more of his children died. He lost his job after more than 15 years. How truthful is he? We already know that he has no moral principles if he has sex with a married woman. Checked him. Did you hire a detective to check his statements? Did you pay for the time you spent with him? Does he have a job now? I've told you everything I know about him, said Alice. So basically, you only know what he told you, and you're putting our marriage and your future on the line for this. How long will he need your comforting sex? It could last a long time, or it'll all go down in a short time. If he finds a younger and more energetic woman, you are not so young anymore. There are many younger and more beautiful women from which he can choose. Have you thought about all this? I trust him. I trust that what he told us is true. So besides that, if he has sex with you and you pay for part of your time together, how do you see your relationship developing? I don't know. I didn't think that far ahead. All I thought about was our current relationship. We got married because we were thinking about the future. Now that you know our relationship is coming to an end, are you thinking about your future with Peter? Or maybe you should think about your future alone. You're scaring me, said Alice. Well, you should be afraid. We are not that young anymore. I know that I will have to look for a new life partner. Since I found out about your relationship with Peter, I have had several dates or meetings. Nothing physical happened until I told both women about my situation with you and how it was ending. I wanted to know what it was like to date again at our age. Are you really going to leave me? No, you've already left me. I'm no longer the main man in your life. We'll share the house and expenses for a while, but we won't go back to the same. At some point, either you or I will get tired of this pseudo-relationship and decide to move towards a conclusion divorce. I think we've talked enough for today. I'm tired and have a lot to do tomorrow. Sign the separation agreement so we can move forward. Have a lawyer review it if you want. Either way, I'll follow the terms of the agreement. You'll probably have to go to the bank tomorrow to sort out your finances, as you'll be paying off your share of our shared stay. I want to sell the car you're using by Wednesday. If you can pay off the balance, you can keep it. Otherwise, I'll sell it online. I need a car, said Alice. Then buy one, I replied. I won't pay a penny for anything you do anymore. Get used to it. And don't forget your phone. I looked at her, went to the kitchen, grabbed a beer, and headed to my bedroom. The lights were off, and the living room was empty when I woke up the next morning. I wasn't sure whether Alice stayed in the house or went to Peter. Either way, I had a lot to do to fulfill the terms of the separation agreement. I was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and reading the morning newspaper, when Alice came in. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning," she answered. "Did you have a dream yesterday?" "No, we are breaking up. You are continuing your relationship with Peter because he is more important to you than me, and we are ending our relationship. I think the divorce papers will be ready within 6 months. By the way, you need to sign a separation agreement. If you don't sign, I'll just file for divorce." "Do we really have to break up? Can't we just continue until my relationship with Peter progresses or ends?" "No, I'm not your backup option. You already said you couldn't break up with him. I gave you a choice, him or me, but not both. You chose him. It kills me that all our years together mean so little to you. We can't just continue. We have to stop. I have to move on. We both have a lot to do today. I'll leave soon. I'll be back in the evening after dinner. Don't worry about cooking for me. When I get back, we'll sit down and sort out everything that's left unclear. I should be ready within half an hour." Alice sat at the kitchen table and watched me run back and forth, getting ready to leave for the day. She was still sitting at the table when I walked past her on the way out of the house. "What should I do?" asked Alice rhetorically. I went to the nearest park and started walking along the paths, talking to myself. Even though I had prepared for the confrontation, I was in mental chaos. Since she didn't want to end her relationship with Peter, I had no choice. I was devastated that Peter and I were on the same level. All our years together meant nothing. Can I still change her mind? Did I want this? Were there circumstances that could justify fighting to save the marriage? It was just her and me. If I could save my marriage, would I be confident that something similar wouldn't happen in the future? She was more devoted to Peter than to me. I should have let her fall and fail. I had to keep living. Life goes on. It took a week to sort out our finances. She took over the payment for her phone. It ended up being more expensive since we were no longer on the family plan. She couldn't find enough money to buy back the expensive car I bought for her. She bought a 5-year-old car, so I sold the car she was using and split the proceeds with her. I returned home with the groceries I bought for myself. She sat at the kitchen table trying to calculate her weekly income and expenses. She did not have enough income, or, in other words, her expenses were too high. She asked for my help. Once I looked at her numbers, it became obvious that some of her expenses were going to Peter. She explained that he was too depressed to find a well-paying job. I explained to her the realities of life. If she was going to maintain her current expenses, she needed to find another source of income. I wasn't going to cut her any slack. She will either find her half of the money or do without it. She started crying again. Don't bother crying to me. You made your choice. Talk or cry to Peter. But I'm still your wife. Only on paper. You divorced me when you started having sex with Peter. You're more Peter's wife than mine. Besides, you're having sex with him, not me. Your devotion is to him, not to me. You need to go where your loyalty is. Please, I need help. I'll only help you with things that won't cost me money, and certainly not with anything to do with Peter. Don't you have any compassion? All our years together mean nothing to you? They mean as much to me as they do to you nothing. You destroyed all our emotions, and you continue to do so. Okay, I'll think of something. As I see it, you have 3 solutions. Either find another job, cut costs, or ask Peter to pay some of the money you need. One thing is for sure, you have no sympathy for me. Frustrated, she collected her papers and went to her room. I sorted out the purchased groceries and started preparing my dinner. After about 45 minutes, she returned to the kitchen and asked what was for dinner. Nothing for you, I replied. Why are you so cruel? She asked. This is your cruelty to whom you have lived for so many years, gave birth to children, and then abandoned him for a fleeting infatuation with pity. We don't have a special relationship. I will help you as I will help anyone who asks for help. You're so annoying. You're such a pain, and you keep doing it. The best thing for me is for you to move. You already have a bed to sleep in. You don't have to stay here every night. It only hurts me more. Maybe you like to hurt me, although I don't understand why. Why don't you start moving your things to Peter? I already asked him. He doesn't want me to move in with him. He thinks that if I move in with him, something bad will happen to me, like what happened to his family. That's bullshit if I've ever heard one. Most likely, you living with him will limit his options with other women he has sex with. I'm sure you are not his favorite. If you were, he would gladly host you. That's not true. He only thinks about me. It would be my bad luck if I stayed with him. I don't believe in luck, but he does. Until he sees that luck doesn't play a role in our relationship, I must be understanding. I never thought that you were so trusting and stubborn. Life will teach you the truth. By the way, have you talked to any of the children or parents? I see no reason to tell anyone anything. I'll tell you about it at some point, so you have to prepare unless you feel there's nothing wrong with your actions. I'm sure everyone will take your devotion to St. Petersburg as something admirable. Ass. Yes, I'm the asshole who ruins a good marriage. Tell the kids, tell our parents, get their support. Maybe they can help you with your money problems. Just remember, if you blame me, I'll tell them the whole truth. Months passed and Alice actually found a second job. Working 2 jobs wasn't fun. This didn't leave her much time to enjoy herself with Peter. When she found time, she was too tired to satisfy them both. Both remained unsatisfied. After almost 3 months, Peter expressed concern for Alice. Every time they met, Alice was too tired to give and receive pleasure in bed. He suggested they take a break until Alice got her life in order so they could enjoy each other's company. Peter's attitude was changing. When Alice began her relationship with him, it was out of pity for the depressed man. Lately, he hadn't talked about his depression, but more about their enjoyment. Alice was so carried away by him that she did not notice the change. Alice and I still shared the house and bills. From her stories, I understood what was happening. I didn't want to rub it in her face, but I wanted her to realize for herself what was happening. Alice was no longer a good lover, and she did not contribute money to their time together. Peter didn't want her anymore. I didn't think he ever needed her, especially without the money she brought in for their time together. The more Peter avoided meeting Alice, the more depressed she became at home. She left home for her day job in the morning after having breakfast at the table with me. She was depressed when she woke up in the morning and found no comfort when she had to cook her own breakfast. The only thing we shared was expenses and maybe a little conversation when we were both at the table at the same time. At breakfast, we talked as if our relationship was normal, but they were far from normal. To cover her expenses, she worked a second job until 9 p.m. on weekdays and half a day on Saturdays. When she returned home, it was obvious that there was no joy in her life. She had to pay her half of the expenses, and no one helped her with household chores like laundry, grocery shopping, car maintenance, etc. I think Alice would like to move at some point, but her half of the house expenses was significantly less than renting your own home. Alice was exhausted and depressed. This became even more obvious when she found out that I had started dating other women. She knew I was dating, but it dawned on her when I started getting phone calls. We didn't have a landline, so all incoming and outgoing calls went to our mobile phones. While I only made the occasional outgoing call, I received several every evening. Sometimes she would come home from her second job after 9 p.m. and hear me on the phone making an appointment. Sometimes it was obvious that I was talking to a man, other times to a woman. Apparently, nice guys are in high demand in my age group. The totality of everything she was going through weighed on her. It was obvious that she couldn't handle it when she started nagging me about little things. I was snoring too loudly even though both bedroom doors were closed. The house smelled from my cooking both morning and evening. Once I gave her the agreement and decided that I no longer cared what she did, I treated her with respect and without hostility, just as I would treat any other person. As soon as she began to find fault with me and found too many shortcomings in our coexistence, I began to reconsider our agreements. Then I started suggesting ending our marriage whenever she complained about something. She had a choice, and I invited her to accept it. Finally, one morning at breakfast, she broke down and said, "I think it's time for us to break up completely. I don't have a life. I don't have a husband. I don't have a boyfriend. All I do is work to pay for my half of the house. It wasn't supposed to be like this. You seem to be happy with your life. You're always planning events. I think you even have a girlfriend. I don't know how serious it is, but that's what I lost. I think it's time we told our families what's going on. I know that you won't take the blame for what I did. I'll have to accept it. You tried to tell me that I was in a bad place and on a bad path. I believed that giving of myself was the highest sacrifice and satisfaction a person could engage in, even at the expense of our marriage. Now I understand that charity must begin at home, first of all. I need a life, and seeing you every day doesn't help me. If we get divorced," I said, "half the house and the money we had when we sat down to talk about it will give you some support if you use it wisely. I'll help you make sure your money is used well." "I appreciate it," said Alice. "I guess I don't deserve your help, even if it's just my money. I'm so sorry that I was so stupid. I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I'm so sorry for what this will do to our children and both parents. Although you have always been kind to me, what can I expect now that everyone will hate me? Does this mean that I will lose our children, and perhaps yours, if not my parents? I haven't told anyone anything yet. Since everyone is so busy with their lives, no one should know the details. Unless you tell or try to blame me, I won't say anything." Alice looked at me with a hint of gratitude for what she was about to lose. I helped Alice through the divorce process, as most of our division was already determined. Instead of spending extra money on another lawyer, I tried to be fair in what we agreed upon. "So," I asked, "have you ever seen Peter? Do you think there's a chance for you to get back together?" "No, you were right all along. I'm so sorry that I did it behind your back. It was wrong, and deep down I knew it. He played with me. All he wanted was to sleep with me and take the money I gave him. Once you stopped the flow of money, his enthusiasm for me dropped. When I had to work overtime and then at a second job, sex became scarce. If I didn't have your money to spend on him, and I was too tired to be enthusiastic about sex, why did he need me? I feel sorry for you. Now you have to live in the bed you made. It will be uncomfortable, but it was your choice. Can't you forgive me? I'm sorry, but the pain is too deep. Moreover, I will never be able to trust you. I will not live without trust. You gave yourself to another man behind my back after all our years together. You knew my attitude towards betrayal and deception. It was the same attitude that you yourself espoused, saying that cheating of any kind was unacceptable. Alice looked at me through her tears and said, "But I'm your wife. We have to forgive each other's mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. Why can't you forgive me for my mistake?" "You didn't make a mistake. You deliberately did what you did. Even when I pushed you into this, you chose him. It's not a mistake. You'll have to learn to live alone or find another man to be with. I've already found one of 2 women with whom I see a long-term future. One of them is a widow, the other is divorced, and has been single for the last 5 years. So you're throwing me out? Where will I go? What will I do? I'm completely lost. I can't imagine life without you," said Alice, sobbing. "You are happy that, despite how much pain you caused me, I will not leave you. We will not be married, and we will not live together, but I will be there if you need help. But only if you do not blame me. When we sell the house, you'll have enough money to buy an apartment or a co-op. You'll earn enough from your day job to cover most of your needs." My last conversation with Alice was heartbreaking. There was no other way. I will help her learn to manage on her own. I didn't want her to fail. While all this was going on between Alice and me, I was dating 2 other women. Dorothy was my biggest influence. Her approach to my almost ex-wife was to view her as a child who had made a big mistake and needed future help, just like our children before they became independent. 2 years later, the situation has stabilized. Alice lived independently. All our children, parents, and relatives knew that we had separated. The divorce went as expected. Alice and I maintained a good relationship. Dorothy contributed to this. Our parents and relatives reluctantly accepted the new reality, as did our children. The kids were disappointed that we didn't stay together. No matter how much they wanted to know the details, we said nothing. Alice started dating about a year after the divorce was finalized. Dorothy and I got married a year after that. Her boyfriend seemed like a good man. We went on dates as couples several times. She even invited him to family events. Overall, it was disappointing that we didn't stay together, but our new normal isn't that bad, and maybe it was just our fate. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.